Yeah, you were just saying about you were just talking about Mickey,
Yeah.
friend of the podcast. But when I heard "Are you diagnosed?" the first thing I thought was I must text Mickey and let her know about the
No
song.
way.
Yeah, because I just thought that'd be right up her street, you know.
That's so cool. Like on I remember when I was making my first single, I just like kept on. I kind of have a reference track for every song that I do, and Sweetness and Light on like multiple occasions has been my reference track just for like how perfectly I think it's mixed and like what a perfect song it is. So yeah, I think I would freak out if I ever met her.
I mean, I am gonna. She's in Japan at the moment, but I am definitely gonna send it to her. I think she knows your dad a little bit because we had a conversation about your dad once. Because
Oh, really?
your dad is the person I think that has probably shown me most kindness in the music industry.
Really?
Yeah, your dad's. I mean, I don't know him very well. I mean, I don't think we've even ever met. But when I left the NME and was quite confused about what I was going to do next, he took a phone call with me,
Oh,
and he didn't know me. I mean, he didn't have to. And I've had some sort of mental health stuff, and he's been really kind with that. So he's a bit of a mensch. Mensch means like good, right?
I've never heard that, but it's a cool word.
Yeah, I think it means good. It would be terrible if it meant like knobhead. I'll have to. I might have to check that, and if it means knobhead, I'll cut it out.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
so nice to hear.
I really, 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 really don't want to start by saying anything about who your parents are, but
It's fine.
is it fine?
Well, I've always known that that was coming. Like since I was little, like the first thought, it comes hand in hand. Like probably the first time I thought, oh, I really want to be a musician and put my own music out there with my own name. The thought that would have come simultaneously is like, oh, here comes all the nepotism baby stuff. So like I always knew it would be talked about, and it should be because like they growing around music where like in our house music, they're both music journalists if anyone listening doesn't know. So like we're not a religious family. Like the closest thing we have to it is just like all the bands that is are talked about like they're like God, and that's just the environment I've grown up in. So of course that's definitely influenced me. But I've just tried to do, because I knew it was going to come. I've tried to do all I can since starting to try and get my music out there to make all the steps so that I know in myself that I haven't used them, because I don't think I could be happy with myself for achieving anything if I knew that they had anything to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the question I was going to ask, I guess, was growing up with like such creative parents or having so much music like in the ether as you grew up, like did anything else ever stand a chance? Was it always going to be music for you?
Yeah, I don't think anything else would have stood a chance. Like, I mean, I have a sister who does, she's a director, but I mean, she directs music videos. So,
Yeah.
like, it's not that far off. Like, I'm not sure if I know they would have been supportive, but it's funny, it's like most people's parents would be like very disappointed if they said they wanted to be a musician. They'd push them to be a lawyer or something. I think my parents would have been secretly a bit disappointed if I'd wanted to be like a doctor or a lawyer. Um, Not that they would have stopped me, but like, we have like an attic in our house where like musicians were constantly living there, like in and out. So like we've always been surrounded by it, which has been great.
I mean, my take on the whole nepo baby thing is that my it was always going to be music for me.
Mm,
I guess I kind of grew up in a place in the country. I'm from a little pit village up north. I kind of grew up in a
mm,
place where like there was no template really for someone like me from my background to ever kind of I've almost like sort of been kind of living above my means really. But my dad, who I did love, he passed away last year, but
I'm
he
sorry to hear.
I'm actually wondering how much longer I've got. Like, thank you very much for saying that, but I'm actually wondering how much I've got, how long I've got before people don't say I'm really sorry about that. It's it's like when it turns New
Yeah, there's
Year.
a cutoff. There is a cutoff. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
when
don't
you
know when it is though. I think it depends how awful the situation is, maybe. I think like there's a ratio.
Yeah, I think I might have a while in. But yeah, I was obsessed with music from the get go, and he was like kind of irrationally unsupportive of me wanting to write about music or play
Mm,
music, or I mean, he hated it. Like he had just, I mean, it was like basically I was a disappointment, and he kind of came
mm.
round in the end. But uh, so my take on the nepo baby thing is sort of not really judging people for like quote unquote getting a leg up, but more just sort of, I don't know. I just think I would have loved that kind of support from my
Yeah.
parents. So, crack on. And I mean, I don't think anyone in the world likes your band as much as your dad does.
It's really sweet. It's like it's kind of actually only been recently, like, because I think maybe even to my detriment, I was like so um like unwilling to like have them be involved in any way that like I wouldn't even play them demos or like anything because I didn't want them to give me a piece of advice that I would actually use and I'd be like shit no they are like it was kind of an unhelpful amount of like me caring, but since I've been like putting stuff out and people have been listening, I've felt more comfortable to actually show them stuff I'm working on. And I kind of forgot how that they are music journalists and like they are really great people to talk to about music because we have all the same references. So yeah, I'm really lucky. Like there's kind of no other way that I could have, I don't know, had the support that I have had.
Yeah, I think it's class. So, fuck anyone that doesn't think so. I'm, I'm all about it. Um, I was talking just before we started recording about Are You Diagnosed? Can we talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love to.
So that's a new single, right?
Yes, yes.
So I'm a person who has been in and out of mental health systems and still is really, but thankfully less and less. And it really it like really hit home when I was listening to the song. Had to go read the lyrics online, which is hilarious the way that they've transcribed you singing about GCSEs. Uh, they saw the
Have
acronym.
they?
Yeah, the acronym. GCSE is an acronym, right?
It must be, but I did not pay enough attention in them to know what
Yeah,
for.
yeah. They sort of go, "Geesh," like it's like they create a word,
That's
but
great.
th- they're definitely the sense of frustration I really related to in that song. But are you? I guess my question is: are you almost advocating for self-diagnosis in that song?
What's like interesting about that question is I actually initially wrote the song um as like a very heated like me being annoyed at how many people were self-diagnosing and like I realized I was becoming the people in camps who didn't believe me because then around my school, a few years after I'd been going through all the stuff, and it's started to become cool, which is a fucked up thing in itself. Wait, sorry, you're allowed to swear on here.
Oh yeah, it's encouraged.
Okay, cool. Um, it became really cool. It was that whole like Tumblr 2014 Tumblr like grungecore thing where like everyone was a sad girl listening to Lana Del Rey and like and I the song was initially me saying, "Are you diagnosed? Like, shut up, like, stop pretending that you're going through all this stuff because when you actually are, you're not gonna wish that you were." But as soon as I wrote that, I was like, "Wow, I sound like such a dick. I sound like all the people at camps who aren't believing me." So the song is kind of about like the fight and the two sides of myself that are fighting with each other. One side is angry about how romanticized mental health is being, and then the other side is angry about like how taboo it is and like how annoying it is that both of those things come together. Um,
That's
so
that's
yeah.
that's dangerously nuanced for 2023.
I was a bit worried, because some of the lyrics feel like I'm like taking the piss a bit. I'm trying to talk about how ridiculous it is. Like you haven't jumped off a moving bus. You haven't, it's meant to escalate and kind of be ridiculous. And I was just hoping people wouldn't think that was being insensitive, but it's
I
just the truth.
I feel unbelievably torn about it, if I'm being honest, because
Mm,
so my thing, for want of a better word, is
yeah,
I've got some eating disorder stuff, but
right.
also OCD, and I really would have needed. I know that I would have needed. I know that it would have been great if I'd heard more people talking about, like, if I could have got help sooner,
Mm,
because I someone else would have explained it to me. I sometimes
mm,
think, say, like with OCD, like that guy George Ezra. I don't
mm.
know. I said that like that guy George Ezra, that very famous pop star George Ezra.
I think I've
He,
heard of him.
yeah, he talks about OCD. He's got OCD, and
Oh yeah.
he talks about it in a very authentic way. And I sometimes think, if my taste in music had been, uh, if I would have liked George Ezra, which would have never been on the cards, if I'm being honest. But if I no, he's good at what he does, but it wasn't really my thing.
Yeah.
If I had heard him talk about OCD in The Enemy when I was like 20, and
Mm,
having conversations with light switches and things, like,
yeah.
it just would have been massive for me. So
Mm.
there's that side of it, but also I guess that I think sometimes, in a way, it's like, it feels a little bit like, and I'm gonna age about 1,000 years when I say this. It feels a little bit like sometimes younger people might be diagnosing elements of
Yes.
their personality.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel that, and it's really interesting. I think it like right now we're in like a time where it's power. Like the more hurt you're being by things, the more power it kind of gives you because like that's a kind of currency on social media. Like you're gonna get way more likes if you're posting like a crying selfie than if like you were just like smiling in like a normal picture. Like people really eat that up. And I think it's really cool to be open about mental health, but like when people are saying, "Oh, like I want to be open about mental health," then I feel like they're never really doing it. Like it's, or maybe what I mean is I feel like sometimes they're not being helpful. Like the only kind of people that when I was going through it that I'd heard talking about things like this were like Amy Winehouse, like Lily Allen, and I don't know, like Demi Lovato. And like all of those cases didn't make me feel very good or like very positive, like things could get better because it didn't seem that way. So I knew I had to wait until I was better to make a song about it because I didn't want to be one of those people again. If that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, no, totally. I actually think there's maybe something quite. Uh, I actually think there's something almost like that might be inbuilt in humans with this, though, because I there was a point in my life. I remember I had like a pen pal when I
Hmm.
was younger, and
Sick.
thank you. I've never thought about it like
It's really cool because now that would never happen, but
that.
that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, but neither would, like, public executions either. Like, some things are supposed to be consigned to the past. But
Yeah.
thank you. It was a lot of fun. I did enjoy sending letters, but I remember writing the bands that I liked, and I think I remember saying Joy Division, Nirvana,
Mm.
Manic Street Preachers, but like only the Holy Bible. And when I think about that, I think, God, I was definitely someone at that point in my life that should have got into like Motown or something,
Yeah.
like, and I feel a little bit like, my generation, which I guess that, loosely speaking, is like an Xennial, sort of somewhere between Generation X and Millennial, is like,
Yeah.
we were kind of force fed music as suffering in a
Mm.
way, like, I mean, admittedly, like, all three. three people from each of those acts, ultimately
Yeah,
succumbed to the problems that they had. But at the same time, like the aesthetic was quite strong even then, and that's like 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago.
that's really so like when you were a teenager and it was everyone was listening to these bands, would it have been cool to like kind of self-diagnose yourself and going around and like was it like it is now kind of?
Well, I don't really feel like we had the language really.
Yeah.
I mean, the weird thing with me is that I was quite a happy kid.
Mm.
It was when I hit sort of early adulthood that things started to go wrong. But actually, as a teenager, I was quite, it was like you know, I've talked about it on the podcast before, so I won't bore anyone again. But like the things that I think led to my problems happened when I was very young.
Mm.
So actually, my teenage years were a bit like, yeah, let's go see bands. Yeah, let's talk to girls and them not talk back to you, and all that sort of stuff. But
Mm.
it was when I sort of arrived at adulthood. But definitely there was something about looking. There was definitely something about almost like isn't the world unfair, and
Yeah.
like why do I feel so sad? There was definitely that. I just don't think there was the language. Like
Mm.
anything like saying you were. I don't know, saying you had like BPD or that you
Yeah.
had OCD or whatever. Like we just didn't have those terms. I don't think.
And it's funny like that even though now I think like from talking to my parents as well, it's a better time to be alive if you are mentally ill. You're gonna people you can talk about it more, there's like vocabulary for it. But it doesn't seem like that much has changed in terms of like still how you're treated, how the treatment is, like how generally your school will react, how classmates will react. So I just find it interesting how often it's talked about, like, oh, we need to all be open, but I'm not sure much is changing for people who are actually kind of going through it. But I hope it is and will, but I just haven't seen that.
Yeah, well, I think the thing that's interesting about that song though is that it's very, I'm very much of the belief that more people need to talk about mental illness as opposed to mental health. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like we're quite, unfortunately, I think the world is kind of breaking people's minds, but I do think that the stigma about saying you're finding things hard or why not just talk. I feel like we've done quite a good job with that actually, but
Mm,
I still think that actually seeing, I still think people are frightened by mentally ill people, and I think that's the taboo really. That's the thing that needs to be changed. And interestingly, you say that about your parents saying that it's probably the best time it's ever been, and I think I would agree with that. Like
mm,
I know some people with OCD that are in their 60s, and when they talk about their experience, I mean, it's horrifying. I mean, it's not electric shock therapy and asylums, but it's close to that. But at the same time, I actually do feel like maybe the care was better at a certain point because I mean, in the video, in Dora's video, like, are you supposed to be kind of almost singing in a waiting room? Because I had quite I I had like chills when I saw that bit because I was like I've been in those rooms before.
those rooms are like etched into my brain that like there's no feeling quite like the feeling of being in those waiting rooms and like having to go in to an assessment or something. So yeah, it's Dora. It's actually the first video that Dora didn't do. My sister, a man called Tom Clover did it, and he
Oh,
is
okay.
amazing. And he like they completely made that room out of like I don't even know how they did it, but it looked so accurate that like I was getting little shivers when I was in there because I shit I'm back. Like it was too real. Um, but yeah, no, the main thing I think I started with Are You Diagnosed with the lyrics, I think was the waiting rooms. Because I feel like they are just the perfect metaphor for like every everything. Like the fact that well, the one I went to was hidden basically in the car park of like the hospital. It was right at the back. There was no signs to it. Like there's signs to all the other units in the hospital, but not mental health. Like you just have to kn be in the know to find it. Um, like no windows. When I first got there, there was like my mum never told me this, but years later after I got discharged, she said the first time we went there, she looked under like one of the seats and there was like in a horror movie, there was like a little like etching there in red pen being like, no one ever gets better here. And she just like that was the first time we went there. And that pretty much summed up like a what the years there were like.
I mean, I always sort of have this thing that it's like we send people to these places to make them better, but those places make people ill. You know, they in East London where I live, the majority of the buildings that the mental health services operate out of used to be
Mm,
they used to be workhouses, Victorian
really?
workhouses. Yeah, so you know they're not they're quite ominous, kind of foreboding, buildings. They're not places that you walk in and think I'm safe here.
Yeah,
That place, I mean, I won't ask you where it was, but that place that you was describing just then sounds awfully similar to a place that my wife took me to about 9 months ago when I was having a bit of a crisis, really, and she downplaying it, having a total crisis, and that place, we got in and they sort of kept us waiting for like 20 minutes outside, and you're speaking to people on the tannoy, and like obviously all the doors are like kind of double triple locked, and I got in and I saw the person, and it was, they were caring. I
that's
did get
good.
some help to a degree, but and then we got a parking ticket. So
Did you? Great, the cherry on top, just to sum it
exactly.
all up. I bet did go to the same place. That place is notorious.
How are you doing with it all now?
I'm f fully recovered since I was like, I wanted to make the last line of that song like positive and to try and give a solution. And my solution was it only gets better when you do it yourself, which is the truth. And I don't know, the only people I know that have managed to get better are the people who like took it into their own hands at the end of the day. Because cams are amazing. The song isn't meant to diss cams. It's like about how underfunded they are. They're amazing. They try their best, but like because it's an illness in your head, it needs to be your head that like decides I've had enough. So I had a few pretty low points when I was like 15. And it just been going on for so long. And especially at the kind of from the times that I was going through it, it was like from 11 to 15. So like who you are at the end of that. Like, I was a child at the beginning and then it ends and I'm doing my GCSEs and I'm like, wow, I've just wasted so much time that like I'm never gonna get back. I think like the anger of that is what drove me to get better. And now I'm in a really good place. I don't I just yeah, I'm not gonna go back there. It's like don't want to waste any more time.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's amazing. I think I always feel really like I always feel especially sad for like young people who are suffering, because I just think there's so much. I mean, I've never been like a depressed person. It's
Mm,
always been like, I've always known that life is wonderful and glorious and wanted to soak things up from it. I just, my brain didn't really want to do that, but
mm.
sort of my spirit did, because that's a bit woo woo, isn't it?
No,
Um,
it's true though.
yeah, absolutely. But I do feel a little bit like if you can get out of the way,
Yeah.
you know, get out of the way early, work out who you are, and then crack on.
I totally, I always say it as a joke now, but like I'm not really joking. Like, thank God I got it out the way then, because like I, in the best way possible, I don't, it really just makes you not give a shit about anything. Because it's like I just kind of felt untouchable when I came out of it. Like I've gone through that and I got myself better. Like what like bring anything on. Like music, there's been times where like I don't know, apparently it's being, it's stressful and stuff to be like making music, to like be doing all this. It's like nothing will ever compare to like how that is. And now I feel like I kind of just feel like my music, when I make music, I'm on a rampage for like my 14-year-old self, and I'm just trying to say all the stuff that I couldn't say then, and like take up the space that I was too afraid to take up then.
Yeah, well, I was reading this little profile piece that the enemy did a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
uh, and I'm pretty sure it was in that. I read a few things before we spoke today, and there's a thing where you're sort of almost talking about, making music for yourself, the person you were at a certain point. I really liked that. Is that kind of still how it feels to you?
Yeah, that is still how it feels like whenever I'm writing music, I'm imagining, well, at first, like when I'd say I'm writing music, I'm writing for a 14-year-old girl who's like really sad and really lonely and feels like she can't like express herself or take up space. And then very quickly, it like didn't take much psychoanalyzing to feel like I'm definitely just writing what I felt like I needed to hear. And I definitely am still doing that. It helps me decide what lyrics are good, what's bad, like what's useful and what's not.
Sorry, I went a bit weird then. Did you finish the sentence?
Yes, I just completed the sentence.
Good, good. Sorry, I felt like I needed a non-verbal cue then. I'll I'll cut this little bit out, I think. Um, how do I get back into that? Um,
What are we talking about?
yeah, that's cool. Was your first show on Wednesday?
Yes, it was. It was.
So my wife was there, and
Yeah.
because my wife doesn't tell me anything other than like, take the bins out. Like I didn't know until she got in, and she was like super. She was really buzzing off it. I'm gonna come on Wednesday, I think.
Oh, yes. That would
Yeah,
be great.
yeah.
I'm like, it was fun, but like, as soon as I came off, I was like, fuck, I want to do that again. I could have done it so much better. Like,
Well, it's a good job you've got two more in the
yeah.
diary. Yeah, but yeah, like yeah, I think that the fact it takes a lot to get me out of the house, but the fact that I like your song so much, um, I guess the question is why did it take so long to get to a first gig?
A lot of reasons. The first one being, um, I mean, I've been a session musician in a couple bands before.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so my initial thing was like I just wanted to be a keys player because that's just like my main thing. I didn't play guitar really until not properly until lockdown started. Um, but then lockdown did start and like I had all of this music, but I was like just really scared of like I was scared to sing. I felt like I couldn't sing. I was scared to play guitar. I couldn't play guitar. I couldn't produce or mix. But lockdown, no excuse to not do all that all yourself because you have to. So like I did that, but and then I had a little band together of my mates from school. But COVID really kicked us in the ass. Like every single time we had a gig booked, it was always the night before. Like somebody got COVID and it would just be done. But now looking back on it, I think it was a kind of a sign because I needed to go off and like learn how to sing and also write loads of songs, which is what I did. But yeah, I've always loved gigging and gigging has always been my main goal as well. So I'm just so like I'm so impatient. I just want to play all the time now.
Yeah, definitely make up for lost time. You why did you not feel like you could sing?
I went to a school where like I also feel like I grew up in a time for like the it's changing a bit now since like Billie Eilish came along, but like for the last 10 years it's been very like Christina Aguilera, Ariana Grande vibes. Like everyone is like an exquisite singer who can like belt and it's amazing. Like it's amazing to watch. I wish I could do that, but like I just can't. Like I've tried before and it's so embarrassing. And um and I just don't think I hadn't done my research. Once I got to like 15 and I started getting into like Elastica and like Lush and like just loads of like Kathleen Hanna, that was kind of, I didn't realize you didn't have to be a really good singer to be able to sing.
Yeah.
And that kind of gave me the most freedom ever when I heard like Damon and I was like, this guy can't sing, but he's my favorite voice ever. Like, and I want to hear what he's saying. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you can write songs.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always really grateful that I'm always really grateful that like I had Nirvana.
Yeah.
That was just like, I mean, they were obviously like the best band ever, but at the same time, I definitely felt like I could do it. It's quite
Yeah.
weird, you know. And I feel a little bit like if my way into music had been Guns N' Roses, which it was for a lot of my friends, like I think I might have been. I don't think I would have probably, pursued it in the way that I did. And I guess the
Mm.
reason I ask is just because you've almost answered the question, but when we were talking about Lush before, I was thinking, well, I think Mickey and Emma's voices, I think they're amazing the way they kind of work together. But like music, this kind of music is almost like a space for people who don't have to do it in the sort of trained stage school kind of way.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, can you imagine my like amazement when I found shoegaze, given that like the three things I couldn't do was sing or mix or like really play my guitar. I was so happy. I was like, this music is amazing, and none of these things are really going on. Like the voice is just another instrument. Like everything's just a wall. I don't have to do like all of these production things I don't know how to do yet. It's like the most freeing thing ever the first time you like see that thing that kind of opens up that world for you that is like close enough to what you're like that you're like, hey, this is could be a possibility.
What are you listening to at the moment?
Oh, I'm listening to well, Little Sims's new album is amazing. I just don't think she's ever released like a bad record.
Yeah.
I'm getting really into like I guess like cock rock. Like
All
I
right.
really
Okay.
like I'd watched the Motley Crue film the other week and like I've been a bit obsessed with them. I've been really
This is
liking
this is really this is really surprising to me.
yeah, I can imagine.
I just yeah. Well, no, sorry. Carry on.
Jane's Addiction is like my favorite band for the last year. Jane's Addiction and like Porno for Pirates have been my favorite bands. They're just fucking sick. Uh what else? Yeah, there's loads of good stuff I've been listening to, but I kind of draw a blank on it. But yeah, why is it? Well, I kind of know why it's surprising, but
Well, I guess just I mean, I hate Motley Crue. I think they're like the worst. I mean, I just genuinely think they might be the worst band ever. But they also that's really weird. I really like horror movies, and I don't think that I've watched a horror movie that disturbed me as much as The Dirt, the
really,
the Motley Crue book. And actually, like the film got a bit of criticism because it was like quite sanitized, but I was really grateful that it was sanitized because the book is. I mean, the
is
book.
it worse?
I mean, I feel a little bit like just because I like your dad and I'm older than you, I feel a little bit like I want to tell you to not read it because it's horrible, Like, but I definitely approve of James Addiction. Like, I think
Mm,
that band were amazing. Like within the era they came along, in that they were kind of like sensual and like emotional, and a lot of the bands that were kind of their peers or around them were maybe a bit macho.
mm.
I kind of, I just think they're great. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I love him. He's so like I love how flamboyant he is, especially given the context of like who they were probably around at the time. I just love how big at the moment I'm really into I just songs that sound like giant. I think that's why I've always loved shoegaze as well. Feels like the most kind of elemental, like biggest sound you can make. I think that's why I've been into like kind of Jane's Addiction and stuff recently because they just like a song like Just Because is like it sounds massive. Um, and I've been really trying to make something that sounds as big. I don't think it's possible from like a shed, but I've been trying.
is that where you record in the shed?
Yeah, I've got a shed it used to be my room. I've upgraded to a shed at the bottom of my garden now. So that's where I demo everything up. But only recently I've been, for like these last few singles, I then take my demos into a real studio with a real engineer and producer, which is a wild experience after just being kind of by yourself. But it's been really cool. So yeah, that's how I'm working.
Yeah, is it weird letting go?
Yep, yep. It's really, especially like, I don't know. I thought about it wrong. I kind of went in with all these songs. I went in with a song like Are You Diagnosed? And I expected to have to explain myself and to also be embarrassed. Like it felt like it didn't fit. I felt like it was like a teenage girl problem. And I was like, these these guys aren't going to get it. But I did them dirty because like straight away, like we're just on the same wavelength. It's so easy to work with them. I was really scared of like, because I came from a school before where I was like one of the only girls on the course, and it was music tech course, and all the guys were like such pricks. Like I got a guy made a PowerPoint presentation for me of like all of the which first of all is just a ridiculous sentence because like we were on the same course and I did not ask for this, but it was like 45 minutes of him analyzing one of my songs and like all the ways in which my production was like not up to scratch and like all the things I need to improve on. So like that was the mindset I was going. So I think I came in a bit defensive and like these are my songs. Please don't try and tell me like how to change them. But I eventually like I love Andy and I would trust him. Whatever he says now, I trust him.
Yeah, it is all about trust, isn't it? So is that where you learn Logic at college then?
No, so when I was like 14, I have this uncle um who's just like a music tech nerd, and he cracked Logic for me for my birthday, along with giving me a electric guitar from Argos. And those two things just like changed my life because yeah, I started producing, I started playing guitar myself. So I've been doing it since then, but I properly learned to produce in lockdown.
So I do this little like band, quote unquote,
Mm,
on my own called Jobbers, and it's just me mucking about on GarageBand, and I really want to, I just, GarageBand's cool, but like there's only so much you can do.
yeah.
How how much of a jump from GarageBand to Logic is there?
I don't think it's much of a jump. I mean, I only did GarageBand like a tiny bit before, so I wouldn't know that well, but like I think the thing with both of those things is they're both like quite self-explanatory, which is really cool because when I then started trying to learn like Ableton and shit like that, I was like, fuck whoever made this. Like whoever has made this has tried to make this as hard as possible to like psych everyone out or like weed out like the real heads. But like Logic, you can just do the little help tool and like it shows you everything. But sometimes I think it's good to not know really how to use the thing that you're using because then you it's good to not have that much choice. Like then you only do what's necessary, I think.
Are you where are you at with an album?
I haven't told the label this, but I finished it. But I don't want to tell them until they ask me because then they'll be like, do the next one. So
Um, I mean,
yeah.
I don't want to toot my own trumpet, but this podcast is quite popular now, and I would imagine that your manager would listen to this. So you might have just blown your cover there.
Well, whatever. I'll show it. I should probably show it to them anyway.
Yeah,
But
fair enough.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm writing a book at the moment, and I keep telling my publisher that I've written more than I actually have. So it's fine. But when would you like that to be out?
Well, I would like it to be out. I'm releasing another EP. I've got an EP coming out on March 24th, and then the plan is to release my second one, which is already recorded and done, in like October. And then so I'd like to do it next year. I just want to keep like I'm quite addicted to the feeling of releasing music now. Like every time you release a song, it like stops just being this thing in your head that you're always thinking about, and it's like then you have space for another one. So I'm really into that at the moment.
Yeah, I tell you what, I do think though. I One of the things I found really hard. I'm just obviously mentioning my book there, like I do on every episode. But one of the things I'm finding really hard about the book is that uh, I definitely am someone that craves validation, which I
Mm,
think kind of all creative people do to a degree.
yeah.
And also, the majority of my career has been spent writing for weekly and daily publications. So you write something, you see it like very quickly, soon afterwards. And I've kind of got a real, I'm finding it really hard to be writing something that no one's seen, and it's just
Mm,
loads of it, and no one's seen. And I think
mm.
that that's something I would maybe struggle with. I think if I was, you and making music like you do, is like you just want to share what you're doing, but at the same time, you've almost got to kind of keep it back to put it into the machine of how this stuff works.
So you put it so perfectly because that was something that really got to me for a while, I think. By the time I'd got to like 17 and um I've been writing songs since I was like 9, but like obviously they were shit. But like since I was like 14 is like some of the songs that will be released this year, like I've had since I was 14. So by the time we got to that point, I just felt you've had kind of, and you do need validation. I had only output and no input. So it kind of got to the point where I got quite intense writer's block. And I think just because you kind of need external like opinions to steer you and like to drive you a little bit. Like I wish I didn't, but I think I do. So I think that gets to you sometimes sitting on stuff, but it's changed now that I have a band because like all my unreleased stuff, we're just jamming out like every week. So it feels like they can still be out there even if they're not released.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it's good that I think it's good yeah, I think it's good like that to be able to let other people in and let them have an opinion or pass judgment, but to almost like I don't know what it is neurologically, but have something in you that knows that you can listen to feedback, but you also know
Yeah,
whether something's good or not. I think that's a real skill.
no, for sure. And I think sometimes I do the really annoying thing of like sometimes I'll ask for someone's advice, but it's only once they give me the wrong advice that I'm like, oh wait, I know what I wanted to do. But like sometimes which is really annoying is I was like, why did you ask me? You just went with the opposite thing.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
you do have to always trust your gut because the times where I haven't, even if it was the wrong decision, you're gonna beat yourself up if you don't listen to yourself, I think.
yeah. Amen to that. Are you hooky? Is a word that I was surprised that young people use. You mean like bunking off school, right?
Yeah, yeah. Everyone is. Oh, I had the most like I did my first ever interview like last week, and it was with Jack Saunders, and he was like, "Does that mean it's loads of bangers?" And I was just like, had no idea what to answer to it, and I was like, "Of course it does," which is like still
Yeah.
really makes me cringe at night. But yeah, what I did mean is it's about bunking off school. It's like every single song is kind of another kind of explains why I wasn't there at different points in my life and why and what I was doing. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
you're gonna be. I mean, you're gonna run the risk of people saying it's a concept record now.
I love that. Yeah.
I just no hooky would just seem. We always used to say wagging off. I mean, is that? But maybe that's a northern thing.
That sounds way too close to wanking off. I
It
would
does. It
That's
does.
a dangerous game to play.
Yeah, yeah. Moving on. That might actually be the perfect point to wrap this up. Actually, I am very much looking forward to seeing you play on Wednesday, and thanks so much for speaking to me. And like I say, the songs I've heard I think are fantastic, and I hope everything is amazing in your life and career.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really lovely to talk to you.
Amazing, amazing. Say hello to your dad for me as well.
I will. I'll see you Wednesday.
Cool. See you later. Bye bye.
Bye.